Our next guest is a man of many talents. He's an international comedian who's opened up for the likes of Chris Tucker and Aretha Franklin. He's also performed for U.S. troops overseas. Right now, he's serving as the social media TV creative director for WBGR TV network. Welcome to the show, Mr. Coy Lasone.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Man, thank you for coming on. Like I said, definitely just appreciate you taking the time out, coming on the show. We're going to head right into the interview and not waste any
It's,
time.
it's Christ over crypto, huh?
It is Christ over crypto. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, I know they say you're a social media director for WBGR Network. Just before we get into what you do in that role, how did you get into the TV/radio media business? When did you know that, man, I have a gift and I can do this?
Specifically, what's that? How I got into it? The video media stuff?
Yeah, how'd you get into, the whole thing? I kind of think it's all together. You're in the entertainment industry, I think, as a whole. You're an entertainer, so to speak, and you do obviously have some, we'll get into some of the business stuff you're doing, but just how did you know at an early age, like, man, you know what, this is something I want to pursue?
I was one of those kids that, I grew up as the only child, right? So I was the type of kid. I love playing with cars. I love playing with toys and all that stuff. I had, the G.I. Joe. I had the Transformers. I had the Hot Wheel cars. But I would play with them not rough. I didn't play with them rough at all. I had my toys were always in good condition, but I would play with them in a movie scene. You know what I'm saying? So I would play with them like in a movie scene because I enjoyed going to the movies. Even when I would go to the movies, I would come back home and I would draw pictures of the movies that I saw. You know what I mean? The characters that I would have seen, I would draw pictures of those. So when I play with my toys, I almost made it into like a director's role. You know what I'm saying? So any child or any other kid, whether it was a cousin or a friend that would play with my toys, I would direct them and say, no, the car isn't supposed to flip like that. The car is supposed to flip like this. So when I would, play with the toys, when other people would play with me, I would always direct them on how they should play with the toys. They don't, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have this and that, and Bumblebee's going to come over here, and then he's going to transform, and then you're going to bring the G.I. Joe around because now it's G.I. Joe versus the Matchbox car that's going to now be launched into, so that's the kind of thing that kind of started from that point on, man. I just always had it in my head to create short films and movies. I've always had that desire, man.
Wow. That's a great illustration, just thinking about a young kid and playing with toys, and you mentioned something very interesting, how many kids play with toys. I had Transformers growing up and G.I. Joes as well. I don't ever remember directing a scene, so to speak, but I think that's a great. It's very interesting how God sometimes puts a calling on us very early, and it manifests itself even as a child playing with toys. So I find that they're very interesting, and I think that's something that as parents, we can look at. Sometimes we look at our kids and how they're playing, and maybe we don't even know if it's a manifestation of something that's going to come later. So that was very interesting. So you're playing with your toys, you're directing your toys. At what point did you get your first real, I guess, exposure or taste to something that was really like, hey, somebody recognized what you did, recognized your talent, and you kind of started moving into this entertainment business industry?
It's. I don't think anybody really recognized it. I think my mother might have recognized it because I used to like writing short stories, and that was the big thing. Is I I was a type that would like to write these different stories, man. And I would have so many different stories, you know, and I would just always imagine them being that type of director piece, you know. So I think a few people might have caught it. They might have seen it, and then when I finally got a camera in my hand, then I was able to really do some things, and then that really was like, oh, okay, this brother, he might have something here. So, you know, it's just something that it really wasn't, and I always try to encourage parents to not always think that their kid is supposed to go to college, but to really find out, to really pay attention and see where exactly do they thrive at, you know what I'm saying, and try to really encourage them to go in that direction. You know, I know it's important to get a job and a career, but, you know, what is it that you see as a parent, or you see as a big brother or as a cousin, that you're noticing and say, oh man, I see something. You know, you just got to be very observant and say, you know what, that's really interesting that person is really helping out a lot. You know, they saw the light was out, and now they all of a sudden got a flash. So that person could act, you know, that could be into production, could be a producer, because they're a brain, you know, they're actually solving problems, and that's important in production.
Man, we're here with international comedian and social media director and producer for WBGR Network, Koi Lasone. Thank you again for sharing that. I mean, I think it's very interesting what you said about people around you, older people, parents, brothers, sisters, cousins. You know, one of the things we talk about in Christ Over Crypto is we talk about stewardship, and, you know, sometimes we talk about finances and money, but I think what you brought up is a very good point, is, you know, the stewardship of the resources around us, and that could be, like you said, children, and understanding what their gifts are and helping them get to that right place. You know, sometimes, you know, we get caught up in the, as you say, going to college or getting that education so you can get that job, but you know, sometimes our calling is not necessarily the standard, you know, go to, you know, college 4 years and then get a job. And I applaud you for saying that, because I think too many times we have people who are misplaced in careers and in jobs, and they're miserable and they don't know why. And so I find that very interesting that you say that. So along that line, were you formally, you know, as far as, you know, obviously your roles now, were you formally educated? Like you mentioned college. Did you attend college, or what was your educational background getting into this?
I mean, I went to college. You know, I got a degree, and I got a bachelor's degree. So in communications. So I know we did some student films and stuff like that, and you know, it was like me and another brother that were kind of like going hard. You know, we would go all out, and I would see him go all out, so I would go all out, but my stuff would be comedy, over the top comedy. You know what I'm saying? I did do a short about the end times where we were able to use a real Army helicopter, but luckily it was like a carnival. It was like a festival day, so anybody could get in that helicopter. But, you know, people watching the film didn't know that. So, of course, they were like, man, how'd you get that? You know, so when the helicopters took off, we got the B-roll. So I was happy to get that. But we went all out, man. I mean, people do real simple films. We went all out. We just feel like, you know, if we're going to do a comedy, let's make it over the top funny, and it absolutely was. And we traveled. I traveled all the way from New York to Vegas, getting B-roll footage. So it was pretty brilliant piece of work. So that's my education.
Wow. And for those who are uninitiated, or maybe a little uneducated as far as the TV, you mentioned the B-roll a couple of times. What exactly does that mean in terms of you know, shooting a film or a movie?
I mean, B-roll footage is there's no dialogue or anything. It's just it kind of captures. It fills in. It fills in the space. So it's like it kind of captures something that you necessarily want to kind of throw in there to make a smooth transition into another scene.
Okay. Very cool. So that's kind of maybe an essential part of making a really solid film, I guess, right?
Yeah, there's B-roll footage in anything, even TV. You know, TV series, news programs. Yeah, sports programs. It's always B-roll footage.
Okay, so let's talk now present day. You're at WBGR, your social media director there. You're also the producer. What does a day in the life entail for you, and what kind of programs are you in charge of right now?
Well, you know, a lot of people come to WBGR looking for a show, and it's a platform that people can have their own show on social media. We're on Facebook as well as Roku Fire Stick, Amazon Fire Stick, and some folks are looking for a platform to say what they want to say, but maybe they don't always know what to say. Maybe they don't know. They know they want their own show. They know they have something on their chest they want to get off. They know that there's a platform that we can give them, but what's their show going to be based upon? So that's where I come in at. I give them ideas for their show. I give them ideas on who their guest should be. I give them ideas in terms of what their topic should be. If they need some guests, I know people that can help them as far as get their word out. So I'm that creative director in that sense, and I try to help people the best way I can to really make their show the best that it can be.
That's great. That's great. So obviously, you have some programming on WBGR. What are some of the programs you're on, and how can people watch and follow some of what you're talking about currently?
I have a program right now that I'm a part of. Well, actually, I'm on two programs. I'm on the Sports Network, and you can go to WBGR Sports Network on Facebook, or you can go to Punches, Kicks, and Giggles. It's a show that WBGR is in production of. It's a boxing show, so if you're into boxing, I'm a host on that program. I'm also on another show that I just started called I Am Not Your Enemy, and that comes on 8:30 on WBGR Entertainment Network, and that's 8:30 on Mondays Eastern Time. And that show is basically about, making relationships look more positive than what they really are. Relationships get such a bad rep. Marriage gets such a bad rep. So we're trying to really give real good solutions for people who are looking to get married, for people who are married, people who are single. We have solutions for them. So it's good solutions. It's not just, why do all men cheat? I mean, we don't deal with that foolishness. We actually come up with real positive images of people who are in those relationships. We interview people in those relationships, and that's what we do on WBGR Entertainment Network. On WBGR YouTube channel, I have another show that's all about breakfast, and that show is called The Breakfast Mojo, and that's when I go around to different establishments and I try their new breakfast menu, and I try to see what's hot on their breakfast menu. Whether I like it or not, I'm going to give my honest opinion, and I'll even go to people's houses and knock on their door early in the morning and say, what are you having for breakfast? And they'll invite me in, and they'll cook breakfast and tell me what they're going to have, and I'm going to be over their shoulder watching how they do it, and then we're going to sit down and eat it.
Wow, I mean that's a very interesting concept, Breakfast Mojo. We're here talking. We're talking with Coy Lasone, social media director and producer for WBGR Network. You can listen to this interview or any other interview on iTunes. Just look for Christ Over Crypto. You can find us there. Also, check out our YouTube channel for exclusive interviews like this, as well as other content. Man, that is a lot of stuff you're doing and you're into. I'm very, very impressed. So I guess right now you've got a lot of things going on, but I always, kind of ask people, 5 years from now, what is the vision for Koi Lasone? Like, are you still going to be doing this, or is there some grander thing that all these shows is leading you towards? Is there something else you want to be directing or doing, or is this kind of where you think you should be?
I mean, nobody really knows what's going to happen in 5 years, but I would like to be in charge of producing maybe a TV series on the WBGR TV network, or I would like to be picked up from one of these shows that I do and doing a national syndicated show on regular cable network. You know what I'm saying? So I'm open for that. As you know, I do stand-up comedy, so I'm looking to do. I mean, it's whatever comes first. Whether it's something that I can be creative in producing, or being in front of the camera, being a host of a show, or doing stand-up comedy. I'm open to whatever happens first. I mean, it's all good.
Very good, very good. I'm gonna get you out of here. Just a couple more questions for you. You mentioned, you start off the interview with a great illustration of how you got started. Just playing with your toys, directing them, directing your friends. I mean, just really good stuff. What would your advice be to youngsters, young ladies, young men out there who are trying to get into this type of path? What is the right way for them to get into it? What would you recommend for them?
I mean, it's a different game now. You know what I'm saying? There's really nothing I would have to say to recommend them to do anything, because they're already doing it from what I see. You know what I'm saying? If they want to be a stand-up comic, you definitely got to have material and you got to get on stage. But see, it's such a different game, Frank, that we're in, because people are being funny without having to be on stage, and they've got thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that's watching them, so they can actually go on tour and put on a show. I'm just concerned about the people that are not going to really get their money's worth, because the people that's doing it, they're not really stand-up comedians. So I think all the young folks out there who is involved in this thing, look, the young person that's doing my Breakfast Mojo, she's a student. You know what I'm saying? And she's doing it on her phone. And she's editing it on her phone. So there's all sorts of things that these young folks are doing. So the only advice I would tell them is to don't overwhelm yourself with attention. You know what I mean? I think some of them are so attention hungry that they need. It's like they can't survive without getting a certain amount of likes. You know what I'm saying? They can't really thrive because they've lost the friends, or they've lost a couple of people now. Some people are chatting with them and they're not really getting the momentum that they used to have, or maybe they are. It's like you can't put all your all into social media. You got to understand that you have a real life, and there's real people around you that you can talk to, that you can touch. So don't get so wrapped into people out in social media world, because once you're gone, guess what? They're going to move on to something else, and you don't know all those people. So just do what you can and get it done, but don't allow this stuff to consume you and make you something that you're really not. Does that make sense?
No, that's some sage advice. Definitely. I think what you're saying is the barrier to entry for this type of stuff is really no barrier to entry. If you have a smartphone and you have the ability to do do a little bit of basic editing, you have a personality, you can be in front of hundreds of thousands of people. But with that comes the cost of balancing that with your real life, whereas where people might have worked years to do kind of what you're doing now, they can attain it instantly, but yet it leaves them still feeling empty when they don't have connection with real people. So that's a very real situation. I think that was very eloquently put. So definitely thank you for sharing that. I never really thought of that perspective before.
And I got one more thing I want to say. I want to give a big plug in. I know you've helped me with this. I am relationship piece that I'm working on now too. As far as comedy, I'm pushing a niche that is, I'm basically now become a nice guy's advocate. So with that being said, I'm doing a lot of comedy dealing with relationships that is absolutely hilarious. I just did a single women's conference, and that was, I tell you, that was one of the best crowds I've had in a very long time. I mean, they were on point. Everything I said to these women about relationships, they loved it. They thought it was absolutely funny. So I'm just putting a word out there for all the nice guys. Look, you guys are the best. Y'all might be a little awkward, but that's okay. I'm definitely going to represent you, and I'm going to get the word out to say, you know what, don't pass up on these dudes because they're good dudes, because we're going to save a lot of women out there from going through a whole heck of a lot of therapy.
Hey, that's what's up. The nice guy advocate. I like that. Man, thank you, man. Man. Real quick, just recap how the listeners can get in, I guess, just see some of your stuff. I know you gave a lot of stuff at the beginning, but just a quick summary of how they can connect with you.
Yeah, you can connect with me on Facebook, Comedian Coy, on my Facebook page. Just send me a message and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast, Christ Over Crypto, and I'll like you as a friend. Or you can go to my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. It's Coy Lasone, CoyLasone, and that's a YouTube channel. So I'm gonna be putting some Breakfast Mojo episodes up there, so you want to check it out.
Definitely, man. Thank you so much for just coming on and sharing such great insight, man. God bless you, and as you go and move forward, like I said, just thank you for the time, ladies and gentlemen. That was Coy Lasone. So, Coy, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, huh?